And welcome back to Subculture. Well, the Melbourne International Comedy Festival is coming up in Melbourne very, very soon, and a lot of the comedians are getting out at the moment and hitting the local comedy bars and places like that, kind of honing their shows for the comedy festival that's coming up. And recently, Lee and I went along to Comedy Gold at the National Theatre in St Kilda, and on the night we went along, there were 5 comedians on the bill for the night. There was Ivan Aristogita. I hope I said that name correctly. He was kind of the host of the night, but also did his own set. There was Diana Nguyen, Urvi Mazjunda. I hope I said that correct as well. Limo, and of course Rusty Bertha from Scared Weird Little Guys. So it was a pretty packed night. And of course, with these Comedy Gold nights, sometimes you don't know who's going to be on the bill for the night. So we went along because we were excited to see Limo. We got to see some other great comedians on as well. And of course, Rusty was the special guest for that night, which was a little bit of a surprise. But Lee, what did you think of each of the comedians that was on the night that we went along?
Well, I have been to a few comedy sets before where you have special appearances, you don't know who you're going to see, and I've come away a little bit disappointed. You know, you've seen one that you really love and the rest are kind of like, oh, you know, they might be starting out, they're not maybe as funny, or they're overly sexualized in their humour. Now, with this gig, I walked away so excited to have seen these 5 artists. I thought their comedy was everyday situations that they make into, into a laugh for us. Now, I did not know that Rusty Bertha was the special appearance at the end. And so when he came out, I was super excited because I have for years bought tickets to see Scared Weird Little Guys. I love that he uses music and makes up different lyrics to everyday songs that you know and love, and just gives you a massive laugh. He is very talented in the type of music that he can play on his guitar. You know, you had anything from Eminem tunes to, I don't know, just everyday Australian tunes. Everything in between. So yeah, rock or pop or country, he had all of those, and certainly gave you a good laugh. I really enjoyed Limo's set, talking about a recent holiday, a van trip with the family, and all the complexities of being stuck in one vehicle for a long time with family members, and then I had not heard of Urvi before that you mentioned earlier, but I loved her set on what it was like in school for her, coming to Australia and then, fitting into that school culture.
With
and
some
very strict parents who, where study is everything to them. I love the humour of Ivan as well. I think he warmed up more and more during the night and got funnier and funnier. And Diana, I have to say, she's probably the one where it was more sexualized than all the other comedians. However, I also found that her humour was funny. You know, sometimes humour is amusing. I would say these 5 performers were very funny.
Yeah, I found Diana and Urvi funny because I've always been attracted to that kind of comedy that talks about what it's like coming from another culture and coming to Australia, because I'm Australian myself, but I grew up in an area of Melbourne that was very, very multicultural. And in fact, when I went to primary school, there were 46 students in my class and only 2 of us were Australian. So I grew up with those stories and grew up with people going through those things. So for me, when I hear people talking about that, it's kind of second nature. It's why I love Wog Boy as a movie so much, because it's like that's what my friends were going through when we were all growing up together. So hearing Diana's story about what it's like being an Asian woman in an Asian family, and then as an actress, she is Vietnamese, but she gets cast as Thais and Chinese and everything else. I loved that kind of humour. I loved Urvi talking about her strict family, because I grew up with an Indian friend who went through very similar things when she was growing up. And yeah, even Ivan, like some of the things, Ivan had a very Jerry Seinfeld style to his comedy, where he was talking about everyday things, like, you know that you're deep in your thoughts if you go for a walk with your dog and your dog does 3 poos, because it means that it's been a long walk, and how we are so reliant on Google Maps and things like that. Like, I like that style of comedy as well. Limo, I'd actually never seen Limo do stand-up before. I've grown up listening to Limo on radio, and of course seeing Limo on television with stuff like Before the Game, which then became After the Game. Seeing him on stuff like that and hearing him on radio, I'd never actually got to see him do stand-up. And of course, when you're doing stand-up, you can be a lot more freer with the stuff that you can talk about. So it was fun to hear him talk about that. I didn't know he had such a dark sense of humor. Like some of the jokes that he told, like about the Titanic and 9/11 and stuff like that, I didn't expect that from him. That was going into like Jimmy Carr kind of territory, which I really, really liked. So and then Rusty finishing off the night, I loved the different things he did with the different songs. Like, all of his songs make you laugh, and then when he does something to a song that you all recognize, like that, it makes it even funnier as well. So it was a pretty good night. Now, I understand from what Ivan said, all of the comedians bar Rusty have shows coming up at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, so you might want to go and check them out at the Comedy Festival, because they were all pretty funny. And if what we saw at Comedy Gold the other night was a warm-up for those gigs, then they're going to be some pretty funny gigs at the Comedy Festival. So definitely go and check it out, but also go and check out Comedy Gold. It's on at the National Theatre in St Kilda quite regularly, so make sure you check their website and go along and check out some of Melbourne's best comedians. We'll be back in just a moment on the show.